So we are in our third week of our small group series based on the book by Mindy Audlin called What If It All Goes Right? Creating a New World of Peace, Prosperity, and Possibility. And I love that a big part of the journey that her underlying intention is to give us some tools for us to really move into living our truest life. And I love how she says that, our truest life, because that's what we do, is to be the truest expression of God that we can possibly be. So the first week we talked about shifting our focus and raising our vision. If you have not got to hear the other talks, I encourage you to go to unity.org. I'm sorry, not Unity, springfieldofunity.org, and listen, because it'll follow right up with today. We talked about how we can what if up, meaning that we're expanding, we're talking in a more positive way, and be open to new possibilities. Last week we talked about the three phases of mind. We talked about the superconscious, which is God mind, the conscious, which is our thinking mind, and the subconscious, which doesn't actually ever have an original thought of its own. The subconscious is given information through the thinking mind and through the superconscious mind. But what we really focused on last week was how important it is that God's in the equation. I mean, God's in the equation anyway, but many times what we do is we first go to, creating our treasure maps or our vision boards or our affirmations before we've gone to this higher wisdom. And when we put, I love it. It's like putting God first. I'm going to go into this space, into this silence, and just be open, and ideas will flood in. And then you're going to find that your visions, your affirmations, your treasure boards, whatever, they're going to be so much more than you thought in that limited mind that it could possibly be. And one of the reasons that we've extended our silent time on Sunday morning is to give us the opportunity to just power down, because I know in our busy lives we don't always take the time to do that. And so coming here, you're going to know you're going to get at least 3 minutes. And that opens up amazing things when we do that. So today, the talk title is Choose This Day Whom You Will Serve. And I shared a while back that the word serve, the etymology of the word serve is slave. And the etymology of the word slave is to be under the influence of something or someone. And that how we can look at this word is that we are under the influence of God. We are under the influence of our Christedness, of our greater truth. And so choose this day. Am I going to be serving? Am I going to be under the influence of my past programming, of what my family's telling me, my friends, what the world is telling me? Or am I going to be under the influence of divine mind? Am I going to be under the influence of God, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it? That's the most important thing, 100%. God first. God first always. So in stepping into our truest life, Mindy shares with us 5 inner strengths that are good for us to work on. The first one is imagination. These are her definitions. It's the ability to direct our thoughts and tap into the field of infinite possibilities. Wisdom, the ability to discern intuitive feelings and take appropriate action or inaction. Huge. The ability to discern through our intuition and whether to take action or not. Enthusiasm, the ability to amp up the intensity of our feelings in order to inspire action. Non-attachment, the ability to let go of the need to change, fix, or control outer circumstances. Anybody need help with that? We're good at that, aren't we? Well, we're not really good at it, but it's what we do. And love, the ability to appreciate and savor your present reality. So today we're going to be talking about wisdom and enthusiasm, a little bit about the imagination with feelings. And then while I have my shoulder fixed, Reverend Chaz Wesley is coming back, and so he's going to be talking about the last two. Okay, so she has this little thing in her book, and try to just focus on the black dot and not the square around it. But what do you see? Just yell out what you see. A clown nose. A black hole. A tunnel. What was one over here? Life. Yep. Yeah. Infinity. Flowers. Moon. She said, your temperament. A Yorkie, I'm like, whoa, a Yorkie. Oh, gosh, I really got that wrong. I'm sorry. I heard your temperament patty. It's a York peppermint patty. I was thinking, wow, that. Oh, okay, I love that. So the great thing about this is that by coming together and we're brainstorming, and I can guarantee you that that we all didn't think of all the things that came up. You know, the temperament thing we didn't think about. But I hadn't thought about a York peppermint patty, and I love those. So what she says is that many times in our life, we see this black dot, and it's our reality. And because we're so used to it being our reality, we don't see it as anything else. And that's the idea of this what if upping, is to move us away from this is how it's always been, this is how people tell me it's supposed to be, and start creating a new reality for ourselves. Now, I've shared this joke before, but I loved it. And a reporter wanted to know, how do umpires figure out if it's a strike or a ball when sometimes they're coming at them up to 100 miles an hour? So he asked 3 different umpires, and the first one said, there's balls and there's strikes, and I just calls them as I sees them. And so the second umpire said the same thing. There's balls and there's strikes, and I just calls them as I sees them. And the third umpire said, there's balls and there's strikes, but they ain't nothing until I call them. I love that. With the idea being, what are we calling the experiences of our life? What are we calling them? Because you know what? We're meaning-making machines, aren't we? We sincerely use our imagination all the time. But what labels are we putting on various things? So one of the things may be that a relationship ended. And so what if downing would look something like, this is evidence that I should never be in a relationship. This just proves that I can't trust men or women. This just proves that I'm unlovable. This just proves that I'm probably never going to have a relationship that is meaningful to me. Now recognize, this is your imagination making all these things up. And how does that make you feel? Yeah, you're just, it truly does bring your energy in. But she says if our mind is in high alignment, we'll have something totally different. Now, she defines this as the ability to find and amplify the positive aspects of any reality. From this mindset, you can use every circumstance for the higher purpose of bringing more goodness to your life and to the world. And that feels better, doesn't it? So imagine stepping back and looking at that black dot of the relationship ending, and what if upping. So we're gonna open ourselves to possibility. What if this gives me a life-changing opportunity to grow in my awareness of what love is? What if I get to experience forgiveness on a whole new level? I wonder what kind of opening this will create for me. What if this opens up new and unlimited possibilities for me to take what I have learned to create the sacred partnership that I've always dreamed of? How does that feel? That feels better, doesn't it? And this feeling thing is highly, highly, highly important. But it opens up the energy again. We're opening up the energy, and we're opening up the portals of godness in our experience. We're gonna get more intuitive nudges by what if upping, and we can what if up anything. So let's talk for a few minutes about feelings. Now, Mindy says that there's good news and there's bad news, because all of those negative vibrations that we're sending out are matching up with like vibrations. So if we're in a real negative place, if we're in the what if downing place, and we're staying there, hear that, if we're staying there, then what can come back to us is the same thing. And she is, I've heard this before, she said if you walk into a music store and you strike a tuning fork, all the other tuning forks of the same key will begin to sing in resonance. And she says what is true for sound vibration is also true for subatomic vibration. And we know this is the law of attraction, the law of mind action, but there's a vibration, there's an energy that emanates from us, and literally it resonates with other like energy. Have you ever had people in your life that you're like, oh, they're driving me crazy, or they're hitting they're pushing your buttons? Well, what we have to look at is, well, what am I emanating? What vibration am I sending out? And as we get clearer, we start attracting people that match our vibration and that share the same ideas. Now, I'm also a firm believer that if I say I am really ready to work on forgiveness, that also is an energy that we send out. And we're probably going to invite some people into our experience that we get to practice forgiveness on. Isn't that fun? So anyway, we want to get clear on that. So Jesus says it like this, Matthew 13:12. For those who have, more will be given, and they will have abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what you have will be taken away. And I remember thinking, this is such a horrible thing, my gosh, those who have will get more, and those who don't have, just forget it. But I got it from a vibrational place, that whatever it is that we have, and we focus on that and appreciate it, and that energy goes out, more is given unto us. But if we don't have an abundance consciousness, and we stay in the muck, and we stay in the not enough and not worthy of, then even what we have is taken away. And I've been there a few times in my life where that exact thing happened. And it's so powerful to start getting really clear in your own mind and heart, what's the energy, what's the vibration that I'm sending out. Feelings, I loved how she said positive thinking pales in comparison to positive feelings. Feelings is one of the key things here, because we can, again, have our treasure maps, have our vision, have our affirmations, but if all that's happening is it's going here and it's not connecting with my heart, that's not going to be a very creative experience. And an example I would use is, let's say that we are desiring more financial abundance. And so we put it out there that by the end of the year, $100,000 comes into my life. And if we've never even handled $5,000 in our life, that $100,000 may be way too far away. We may not be able to believe it. Whatsoever things you ask for in prayer, believing it, you will receive it. We may not be able to believe that. So two things can happen here. You can break it down a little bit more and focus on $10,000 or stretch yourself a bit. But the other thing that you could do is get underneath it. What do I think $100,000 is going to give me? It's going to give me a sense of freedom, joy, generosity, happiness, connection, whatever it is. And then you focus on the feeling. Here's the thing, the universe will deliver everything in here that you're asking for. And it may not have to show up as $100,000, but it will be far better than you could have ever possibly imagined. So we want to get that heart and that head together and we want to feel our desires. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is wisdom. And she says that wisdom is the ability to discern intuitive feelings and take appropriate action or inaction. Now, immediately for me, I went to a couple of scriptures. Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on thine own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And then Isaiah 55:8-9, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher and than the earth, so are my ways higher, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Lean not on thine own understanding. These two things right here are so powerful, and they go perfectly with what we're talking about here. That we're moving out of our own understanding, what we would call our own wisdom, and we're raising up and leaning on that bigger divine wisdom, that bigger divine understanding, and recognizing that the thoughts of the divine far outweigh the thoughts of the mind. Far outweigh the thoughts of the mind. So I'm going to share with you just a couple things from not leaning on thine own understanding. And I've shared this before, but it's what I know. That in 1994, at the end of 1994, I was offered the job here as the secretary of Christ Church Unity, it was then. And when I first got that call, it didn't really sound like necessarily something that I wanted to do. And I didn't think that they would be able to give me benefits, and I had benefits where I was, so I said, no thanks. But something nudged me. And it's, this nudging, it can show up in so many ways. To me, I didn't hear an audible voice, but it's like the thoughts are so strong, and it said, just be open. And so I called back and said, yeah, I want to look more into this. And so I became the secretary here on February 14th, the day of love, 1995. And had I just gone with my wisdom, doesn't sound like something, and I bet they can't give me benefits. If I'd have done that, I wouldn't be here today. And the thing about this too is what lies out, what goes out before us, because I would have never imagined ever that I would be doing what I'm doing today. And yet it's the most natural thing for me to do. It's the gift that I have been given in my life. And Dee was reminding me that it was through a timeshare flyer that she got, that the higher wisdom said she was in Kansas City, Overland Park area, moved to Branson. And you know what? She didn't question it. She moved here, and then everything just flowed in this amazing way that she's here today. Lean not on thine own understanding, because sometimes things are going to show up differently than we imagine them. And I want to say this over and over again because I want us to open up and know that this divine mind, oh my gosh, there's infinite possibilities and potentiality for any situation. There's not just one. There's infinite. And so if you didn't act on something, opportunity does not only knock once. Who the heck made that up? Good Lord. No, opportunity is always, 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 always knocking. And ours is to open up to it and step into it. And just be in life. Be in the joy of life. Don't worry about what other people say about you. You're crazy. It's interesting because I thought back when Sean and I met, and I know a number of people have had this experience, but when we first got together, the first date, we knew we loved each other. It was immediate, and we weren't separate from that point on. People around me were like, you're crazy. What are you doing? But it ended up, it was the greatest experience of love that I've ever had, and I would never give that up, And I know many of you have had that experience, so lean not on your own understanding, but upon this greater reality. And, you'll be amazed at what can show up for you. I want to share with you some quotes about this. The wisdom you seek is within the depth of your mind now, for you are now an expression of divine mind minding your mind. Isn't that awesome? Divine mind minding your mind. Wisdom expands the mind. It scatters the ignorance of mortal thought and releases an inner light that so illumines the soul it is flooded with divine ideas. And I'm going to tell you, that's generally how wisdom shows up, is in the realm or the form of divine ideas. And it shows up through people showing up and through songs and various things like that, but it's still divine ideas. the wisdom reorients the individual from within. True wisdom first expands one's mind, and then it expands one's world as the individual listens to its guidance. These are powerful. The only the only way to really know is to become perfectly still, to get away from the outer and from looking for things into the inner quiet where we are alone with wisdom. In the silence, wisdom is given for every need. And the beautiful thing about it, because even just being here for the 3 minutes that we go into the silence, it doesn't mean that in those 3 minutes you'll hear a voice, but it does mean in those 3 minutes you have opened up the floodgates, and you will receive divine inspiration and divine wisdom. Those quiet times apart are vital. And again, who am I here? Who am I serving? What am I serving? As for me in my house, I choose to serve the greater reality. I serve to be under the influence of that. God first, God first, God first, God first. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, well, look at that. When you find yourself in circumstances over which you seem to have no control, instead of fighting to survive in those circumstances, that is the time to call on divine wisdom. That's the point at which we finally realize we don't have control. So, but let's go to that earlier. Let's go to that first thing. Okay, enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the ability to amp up the intensity of our feelings in order to inspire action. Hop over here. I'm going to share with you some quotes, and you'll recognize most of these people. Henry Ford said, "Enthusiasm is the yeast that makes your hopes rise to the stars. With it, there is accomplishment. Without it, there are only alibis." Resonate with anybody? Yeah. Walter Chrysler said, "The real secret of success is enthusiasm." Thomas J. Watson Sr., former president of IBM, said, "The great accomplishments of man have resulted from the transmission of ideas and enthusiasm." And Charles Schwab said, "A man can succeed at almost anything for which he has unlimited enthusiasm." Mindy says, think of a radio in your car, and the tuning dial is you're tuning into your thoughts. What are the thoughts that you want to focus on? And enthusiasm is turning up that dial. It's raising and increasing the energy of those thoughts. And how many of us have been around people who just have this enthusiasm? We've all been around them. And don't you see that when you're with those people, things just happen for them. Things just open up, because they're so in that place of expectation and knowing, and it's just again raising the energy, raising that vibration. Amazing things happen in that. Now this is actually one of our 12 powers, as is wisdom. Wisdom comes under judgment. And our co-founder Charles Fillmore, he did not create the 12 powers, but he expanded on the 12 powers, and it is called zeal. He says, "Zeal is the great universal force that impels mankind to spring forward in a field of endeavor and accomplish the seemingly miraculous." And as we talked about it the last couple weeks, honestly, nothing is a miracle. It's all just law. It's divine. It's a divine realm. But it seems miraculous when we start lining up with this. And don't you, I was thinking about how every day I have experiences where I still step back and go, wow, this stuff, it's real. Where, it's something shows up, or a person that I'm thinking about that oh gosh, I didn't remember their name. I'll come in and somebody will say, oh, this came, and the person's name is on there. It's a constant thing as we step into this. Now, she invites us to increase our enthusiasm and our zeal, to use our imagination, and really get into our imagination and create things and take baby steps. But she really encourages us to get with other people. That's why a small group is so great, because other people have different ideas than you. Yes, of course. And it's things we may have never thought about. And how many times has somebody been able to see something for you that you couldn't see for yourself? All the time. And so to be able to get together at least with one other person and talk about your desire and then what if up it. And the other person, their what if ups are going to help raise you. It's going to help motivate you, because I promise you, you're going to say, I never thought about that. So it's very important to do this with more than one person. And if you can get a group of people, that's even more awesome. Charles Fillmore, when he was at the age of 93, this is what he said: I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. Powerful, huh? And that's his actual handwriting. Before, I'm going to have us say this together, but before I do that, in closing, I want to share with you some of the writing of some of the beautiful writing of my husband, Sean. Most of you know that Sean passed away unexpectedly in January, and I'm just now starting to get to the point where I can read his writings, and they're so deep and so profound and so beautiful. I loved how his mind worked. So, and this has to do with today. He says, so it is that I see I am co-creating with a loving universe that works within what is and brings forth from what will be. This calls for acceptance, vision, creativity, patience, and trust. And since I am a part of the process and solution, it calls for responsibility and action. So I send love to what is, and I send trust to my loving God. I co-create by taking from what is and giving birth through imagination and action to what will be. Then I watch in trust and love as I and everyone and everything are all move forward in the continuing evolution of God's loving creation. Isn't that beautiful? It's how he wrote and thought all the time. Just love that, and it's so true. So to close today, I am going to invite us to share together what Charles Fillmore says here. And since we're doing it with zeal, I'm going to invite you to share it with zeal and enthusiasm. Together, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm as spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. Watch out, because you have just affirmed something really big and something really great. And namaste, namaste.